and welcome to another episode of Mike and Dave's Hi-Fi Riff. I'm Mike Evans.
And I'm David Price.
And David, today what are we going to be talking about?
It's the Videotone Minimax.
Now, are these going to be speakers that anybody's ever heard of before, do you think?
Yes, I think you and I, at least.
Well, we heard about them quite a long time ago, if we're going to have a bit of full disclosure here, because I would have first heard them when?
1978, 79.
We probably should lie about our age here, shouldn't we? Yeah, so late 70s,
Yeah.
78, 79. Because...
Well, they were a fave-rave of many of the sort of hi-fi magazine reviewers of the time. And I remember especially Popular Hi-Fi, which I think was Chris Franklin's, he was editing that magazine, raving about them and basically saying, buy Videotone Minimaxes and then you can save money and you can then spend loads of money on a lid.
That sounds very much like Chris Franklin to me.
Yes.
But I was going to think the reason why I first heard them back in 78 or 79 was because you had a pair.
Yeah, I had a pair in 1980.
Did you? Okay.
That's right.
Okay.
So I'd kind of known about them from 77, 78, and that's kind of when we started reading those hi-fi mags. But I got a pair at Harrogate, the Harrogate Hi-Fi show in 1980.
Amazing.
Yeah.
So you would have gone there in your dad's Triumph 2500 Pi, no doubt.
Yep.
That would have been fun.
Wedgwood Blue.
It was an amazing car. I remember it really well.
It was great.
Yeah, fantastic.
It was very...
My dad had a Triumph 2000, and I kind of felt sort of, well, it's just like our hi-fi systems now, isn't it? Just feel like a second-class citizen as always, such is.
Well, I haven't got Isobarics and Sarah's bike, so.
And they did you a deal, didn't they, at the Harrogate Hi-Fi show?
Yeah, I think at the time. So the ones that I got were the GB3 version, and we'll explain more about this. But basically, it was a Videotone Minimax, and the normal price was £75. And at the show, they were on sale for £50 a pair, and I couldn't resist it. So I think it was like 4 years of sort of washing cars in the village or something for that. So
which was worth every single soap
exactly.
set, because they are bargain of the century.
Yeah.
We've just plugged them into our system here, which is the name Muso Headphone Edition, and also
as a preamp and streamer.
Preamp and streamer.
Yeah.
And then the Marantz amp, the Marantz Class D, which we reviewed recently.
That's right.
They sound amazing. And we were just chuckling because, that's like a 10 grand system with your 50 quid loudspeakers from 1980.
Yes.
Sounding just phenomenal. And once again, I don't think it's a system which many people will have bought or heard.
Well, I think it's fair to say that neither Name or Marantz have tried their products with 1980 Videotone GB3s.
No, welcome to Hi-Fi Riff.
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah, sure. And they should have done.
Yes.
Because it sounded amazing. We were playing our usual eclectic, strange taste in music. So we played some Level 42.
Yes.
In Excess, a bit of Pink Floyd.
Yeah.
Sounded fantastic. They're not kind of the most power handling great speakers.
No.
It's not too clunky. About 20 watts, are they? Something like that?
Yeah, I think they've got a power handling of around 20 watts per channel. So obviously I was telling you not to blow them up, because I think that Marantz has got a power handling of about 1 million kilowatts.
It has indeed, yes.
But, we still got to fairly loud levels, didn't we?
Amazingly good.
Yeah.
Even being quite cautious.
Yeah, so let me show you the speaker in question.
They were sitting on my Lin Can stands, and they are way too small for the Lin Can stands.
Yes, this is the funny thing. We had 2 cans. There you go. Would you have a...
Yeah, sure.
We had 2 cans.
Back
there we go. So
that's 2 cans, not 2 cans.
That's 2 cans,
not 2 cans.
That's right.
Yeah.
So Lin 2 cans, which followed the Lin Can, which were almost the same size, I think, as the original Can 1s and Can 2s.
Ported.
But ported, and I think not as good, and we think not as good.
Not at all. These sound amazing.
Well, they weren't as good as these either, were they?
No, that's what I meant.
Yeah. So.
Yeah. No, these sound fantastic. So these are 2-way infinite baffle, as you can see.
That's it.
We've got some binding posts on the back, which is pretty cool. So we just sort of stuck the old banana plugs in, and away we go. And wow, just fabulous.
Absolutely.
Just fantastic.
Well, these were basically my first ever hi-fi speaker.
Yes.
So the ones that I had before, I basically took the speakers out of my uncle's radiogram, basically, and stuck them in some random cabinet with a few wood screws.
What did you use these with? Did you have your Riga then, or were you with the,
No, so that was before. So I would have had, at the time, my Trio KA 3700 amplifier.
Yeah.
And I would have been using I'd been using a Garrard SP25 Mark IV.
Amazing.
With a Goldring G850 cartridge, with a sapphire, with a conical stylus.
So these would have been paired, I would imagine, an awful lot with, say, something like a Riga 2 or a Riga 3.
Yep.
And I don't know, and then there's a whole bunch of amps which around that era would have been amazing. And we reviewed the Creek recently, which would have fitted in very nicely.
Well, we were talking about this because Popular Hi-Fi had this kind of upgrade table, and it was basically buy the cheapest speakers and amp you could, and then get an LP12.
Exactly, yes.
So then loads of speakers recommended, loads of amps, and basically one turntable. Well, no, actually that's not true. There's the Riga 3, if you're a cheapskate, but basically just get a Lin. So we were thinking when we did the Creek review, the 4040, a few weeks ago, that was so good it let people save money on amps in order to buy an LP12.
Yes.
And I think you can say the same thing about these as well. They're absolutely fantastic. So you could buy, for example, an A&R A60 or something like that, or a NAD 3020, an early one, and get yourself an LP12, couldn't you? Yes. So we were trying to think, because it was a phenomenon in hi-fi in the UK in the late 70s, like fantastic budget products which were good enough so you could save money and buy an LP12.
Yes.
So and you called it Ivor Tiefenbrun's Jag Fund.
That's what it was. Yes. So Videotone have definitely. I think they probably got Ivor his TWR Jaguar XJS.
Yes.
These little babies are responsible for that.
Yes, and probably a few speeding tickets as well with it.
Absolutely, yes. Yeah, with his London to Glasgow record times.
Yes.
Which you can't beat in a jumbo jet.
And you can't mention here for fear of...
yes. I'm sure there's statute of limitations.
Well, yes, exactly.
1980.
Exactly,
But no, so you're quite right. So I guess if you weren't kind of going to be that radical, you'd probably have the Riga 3 and then maybe something like... I'll tell you what would work really well with these, something like a Nitec CA252 calculator amp would be amazing. Miss TMA3.
Well, I think at the time, so if you think the late 70s, I think the only amps they were recommending at mid-late 70s for this, in this kind of magic popular hi-fi upgrade table was Arcam, or it's called sort of A&R
Cambridge.
That's it, A&R Cambridge, A60, and also the Nitec CTA 252 receiver, which we were told you should ignore the tuner, even though that was great. You just buy it because it had a great amp section.
Yeah, absolutely.
So
and then these. And focus a bit on stands and cable. And you had your hi-fi, didn't you?
Yes, the cable being QED 79 strand.
Of course,
so that's about the only cable that they made that was proper hi-fi.
At 79p a meter.
That's right.
Yes,
quite. But I mean, these actually have a very interesting story behind them, because Videotone was the UK. In the UK, we knew them as Videotone with an E at the end, but they're from Hungary, obviously. And the original company, Videotone or Tone, or however it's pronounced in Hungarian, was basically making these in order to get Western currency, weren't they? So
I didn't know that.
Yeah. So obviously, this was the sort of end, well, not quite the end times of the Soviet Union, but they were quite desperate, I think, to get Western currency, foreign currency. And the UK importer, Cliff Hardcastle, a guy called Cliff Hardcastle, who was a former Mullard and Phillips engineer, said in an interview that I read, God knows how many years ago, that he started to import these as the Minimax in 1972, and he bought the speakers, in quote, direct quote, incredibly cheaply from the Hungarian factory from Videotone. and sold them. I think in 1977 they were £46 a pair.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Amazing.
So that in today's money, because I checked on one of those calculators online, as 250 quid.
So. And in fact, I mean, for that you get an amazingly well built product, because these aren't MDF or veneers. These are solid wood, aren't they?
Absolutely, yeah.
And also you've got a couple of really, you can't see them in here obviously, but some really classy bass and treble units.
Yeah.
And you know they're going to sound. You know they're going to be well made and put together because of the way they sound.
Yeah.
One leads to the other.
Well, you can if you do the knock test, then they're very solid, as you say.
Yeah, they are.
Real teak or real walnut wood cabinets. Infinite baffle, obviously heavily braced, I think, inside, but there's not much inside to brace, to be honest.
True.
And they weighed about 4 kilograms for, which is a lot considering how tiny they are. They're LS3 5A size, pretty much. They make most modern small entry-level speakers look big, I think.
Well, they don't even fit on the can stands.
No,
they fit in between the spikes in the can stands. That's
So
how tiny
too
they are.
small for Lin Can stands,
Yes,
basically. So they are smaller than Lin Can 1s and 2s,
Yes.
which is saying something.
It is.
Yeah, and they came with a doped paper mid-bass unit with a rubber roll surround, which is very high quality unit made in-house, I think, by Videotone. And the Minimax version had a cone tweeter, which was 100mm cone paper cone tweeter, which is unusual. You normally have domes, don't you?
Yes, yeah.
So that was unusual. And obviously the mid bass is down here is 125mm. So very small drive units, basically as big as you could get in the cabinet. And the GB3 version, which I've got, had a dome tweeter, a fabric dome, which was specified by the UK importer. So the GB3 is basically a UK limited edition Videotone Minimax with a better tweeter. We heard when we were auditioning it that it is a very good one, isn't it? So
it's amazing.
Yeah.
This is something which you kind of know what people are going to be thinking when they see this. You're going to be thinking, well, okay, guys, it can't be that great. It can't have any bass and blah blah. Okay, the treble might be quite sweet, and there's something really beguiling about small speakers for me personally. I like the way they image and so on. But actually, they're amazing, aren't they? They really do chuck out some proper amount of bottom end.
Yeah.
For these tiny, tiny little things.
Yeah.
You wouldn't believe it. You've really got to listen to them, haven't you, to actually understand what we're talking about.
Well, the weird thing for me is that they were my first proper hi-fi speaker, and I listened to them, for many years, and I ended up with, I think, probably a Riga Planner 3 and my NAD 3020, before I upgraded these to cans, as you do.
Yes, yeah.
So I hadn't listened to them for a while, and I got them out the attic. And I'm bowled over by how good they sounded.
Absolutely amazing.
So,
and as you say, I don't think there's a speaker for the price which could touch it these days. I mean, I don't know how much you can pick these things up for on eBay or whatever, but God, if you find a pair in as gorgeous condition as this, these are amazing. I don't know what they would go for. Not a clue. Haven't looked.
They do pop up once in a blue moon, and when they do, then it could be anything from 50 quid to about 300, depending on condition.
Sure.
With these, I got these on eBay a few years ago. These particular ones we've got here, and I got them basically refurbished by a company called Anapeach Audio that we use. I've used to do a number of speaker restorations on.
I've got the little restoration sticker on the back.
Absolutely. There you go. And
July 17.
Yeah, and absolutely, there you go. That's 5 years ago.
Yeah.
And you can tell they fitted the standard banana sockets there.
Thank heavens, we just tried to plug them in otherwise.
Yeah, retained the DINs that were originally on there. And these ones have had Solon capacitors in the crossovers, which are better quality than the originals, and slightly better wiring as well, kind of modern wiring. So they're slightly better than normal. But the cabinets just were beautifully refurbed. They look absolutely perfect, don't they?
They do.
And they sound absolutely gorgeous.
They don't look like they should sound so good.
No.
They look a little bit like a toy, but actually they're
Yeah.
very, very far from it. They remind me, and you know what I'm going to say now, they remind me a little bit of the ProAct Super tablets, which I love so much.
Yeah.
You know, that amazing amount of sound coming from such a tiny little box. These are a poor man's super tablet, but I think, you know, almost in every department that's good.
Well, the great thing is they time really well because they're infinite baffle. They've got a great cabinet, and they're really tight, and they really get right into the rhythm of the music.
Yes.
And we were playing Another Brick in the Wall Part 2, was it?
Part 1.
Part 1, I beg your pardon. And the guitar being played throughout that, the kind of rhythmic guitar line, was really beautifully carried and better than the Linn Toucans that we then listened to, which are hardly bad speakers. So
no, not at all. Because they're infinite baffle, they take a little bit of driving.
Yeah,
I've got this strange image in my head of somebody with a system of an LP12 with an ITOC and a Karma and a name 32.5 high cap 250 and a pair of these.
Yes, that's you, Mike.
Yes, that would be probably one of my ultimate systems, I would imagine.
So absolutely, the quoted sensitivity is 83 dB, and knowing manufacturers, that's probably a bit generous.
Yes, yeah.
So you need a lot of power to really drive them. Yeah. And we did have a lot of power from that massive high-end flagship Marantz amplifier, and it really drove them really well.
Yes.
The frequency response is said to be 55 hertz to 20 kilohertz, but probably 55 hertz, there's just the sort of it's about minus 50 dB or something. There's hardly anything there.
Sure.
But it was one of the speakers that was DIN certified. I don't know if you remember the DIN 45500 certification.
It's just so sad sometimes.
Yeah. So not a lot of people know this. So they had in the late 70s, there was this fashion for getting Hi-Fi DIN certified, and it was actually a lot of Japanese manufacturers did it, and it meant you got a little badge, I think, on the box, and sometimes people put sticky labels on, like JVC cassette decks had them, and it basically means that it's flat from 250 hertz to 6.3 kilohertz plus minus 5 dB, which is like rubbish. So if it was like plus minus 0.1 dB, then it would mean it was ruler flat right from the
so
from the sort of upper bass to the upper mid range.
So basically, DIN certified means it's not very good.
It means it's better than the rest of them, which were DIN certified.
Excellent.
But yes, I don't think your Amstrad music centres would have been DIN certified.
No, probably
not.
Actually, that would have been. I would bet a load of people use these with music centres. Bin the crap speakers that came with them and plug these in and probably make a half decent noise.
Yeah, well, according to Cliff Hardcastle, the UK importer, he said that despite the likes of Popular Hi-Fi and Chris Franklin recommending them every month, most of his sales came from people with rubbishy music centres just to replace their crap speakers.
Amazing. Where would you use these today? I mean, if you had a pair, well, you've got a pair, but you know, if you're going to deploy these, they're too good just to be computer monitors, aren't they?
Way too good. Yeah.
You know, I mean, even if you had something like, is it the Chord Annie, which is a little sort of micro amp, which is designed for that sort of thing.
It wouldn't drive these for a start.
No. But I mean, they are bona fide hi-fi speakers, aren't they? They would fit in beautifully with a decent, well, we've just listened to it, a good streaming system worked well with, and
absolutely.
Again, Riga Planar 3, which we reviewed recently, that would be again a brilliant front end for it.
With maybe a Chord Cuter stack or something like that. And some nice little amplifier in a small, like a sort of bedroom or office room, that kind of thing.
Yes.
But they're not really appropriate for large listening rooms.
No.
But they are so good in a small space, and they're very easy to place. And they are very small, and they're LS3 size, but I think in some ways they're more fun to listen to.
I agree. I'm probably going to get absolutely shot for this, but I've never been a massive fan of the LS3 5As. It's not to say I don't appreciate them, and not even say I don't like them, but they've been quite sterile for me, not quite as musical, not particularly foot tapping. Whereas actually these are quite the opposite.
Yeah.
These really make it swing, don't they?
They really do. They are very kind of flatter speakers, actually, aren't they?
Yes.
they're kind of the poor man's Lin Can 1, really, aren't they?
100%. Yes.
And lots of fun, providing you've got the amplifier to drive it.
Exactly.
So, yeah.
Exactly. So a wholehearted recommendation from Mike and Dave's Hi-Fi Riff here.
Yeah.
We should do a riffometer on it.
Yeah, so I mean, I'm going to give them 9 because they've I've got an emotional attachment to them.
Sure.
And they're certainly the best small speaker you've never heard of.
There's no two ways about
it.
Yeah. That's quite difficult for me. I don't really know kind of where to go with that. I'm really struggling to find anything to mark them down on at all.
Yeah.
But you certainly can't
the
mark
price.
them on price.
Yeah. Crazy.
Build quality, everything's just gorgeous about them.
Well, find another speaker now that has a real wood cabinet and that sounds like these for the equivalent money that they sold for.
Yeah, you got no chance.
Under 300 quid.
No chance.
Now
no chance.
it's absolutely breathtaking.
Yeah. Well, I'm gonna give them a 9 as well.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you why they're losing that extra point is because you've done the sensible thing and had them modified.
Yeah.
So you've got the banana plugs. The DIN is a little bit of a pain in the bum these days, but not insurmountable.
No.
But there we are. Fantastic. So look, thank you very much for watching this sort of retro riff of these amazing Videotone speakers. Really good. Thanks for bringing these along. Been brilliant.
Pleasure. Yeah.
And we'll see you all at the next one. Thanks very much indeed. Bye.
Bye.